But take us back when you first got into sales and what it was like, maybe your first month, your first 6 months, your first year. When did you start?
Oh, that was a long time ago. I've been in this specific industry for 30 years. But when I started, it wasn't pretty at all. There was not much pretty about it. So I came from the computer industry, got a degree in that. And I had a cousin that worked in the home improvement business. And he brought me over, catered to me, and taught me what I need to do. But it wasn't very good. So
you didn't start off making 25, 30 grand a month, like month number 2 when you started 30 years ago.
No, I thought after the first week, maybe I should be doing something different. I should be doing.
So you're like a lot of us. And
right.
The reason why is not because you're not a nice guy, not because you're not cool or just whatever reasons that people think. It's just because you haven't learned the right skills yet. It just comes down to skill level. Selling is something that is acquired. It's learned. It's a huge myth when people think, oh, they're a great salesperson, they have the gift of the gab. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the more you talk, the salespeople that we train when we go to companies, the people who talk the most, who have the gift of the gab, are the salespeople who are the worst in the company. Like they don't make that much money. Okay. It's not about that. We don't live in 1930 or 1940. The gift of the gab is gone. People are way past that in 2021. All right. So you get into this, sales role 25, 30 years ago. You start selling windows, you start selling doors. Take me back and walk me back. Like, how did you first start to learn sales a long time ago?
Well, the place I work with, they had a systematic approach of selling. So since I had no experience in sales, my only option was to follow that particular program. Okay. And I didn't know I didn't know anything to compare it to. So I just did what they told me to do.
Yeah. So you just did what they told you to do. And take us back, like the first year, what type of results did you get doing it that way, I guess, whatever the way that was?
Yeah. Not the greatest. They had, when I started, their number system for the week was 15 leads, 10 opportunities, 2 sales, 15, 10, and 2. So you had 10 opportunities a week, 2 sales. So you were considered decent if you were closing 20% throughout the week.
Yeah.
And that didn't count any fall off, cancellations, bank rejections, that type of thing.
Yeah. So if you were closing 20%, you were at the top of the world.
Right.
How long did it take you to realize that closing at 20% was not only doable, but that you could actually do a lot more than that?
It took me a while because, I did what everybody else did. I just read the current books, went to the seminars.
Tell us what books did you read?
What
did you go through?
The sales gurus like Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins.
Yeah.
Act Like a Lamb, Sell Like a Lion. I did all the conferences.
Okay. Yeah.
I bought all those cassette tapes. You remember cassette tapes you put in your car?
Sure. Yeah.
Those on the drives back and forth for the deployment. So that's all I really had to pick from.
Okay. Yeah. And, I've met Tom Hopkins, great guy, kind of grew up selling, and I would say more like the 70s kind of way to sell. It's a little bit of a mixture of boiler room selling with a little bit of consultative selling mixed in there. And hey, back in the 70s, 80s, it worked somewhat decent. The problem is with the power of the internet, especially social media, we just live in a different age now. Like people have information at their fingertips. In 1978, they didn't, right? The bridge between a company and a consumer was really the salesperson. Like people expected to be educated by salespeople about products and services. Now, with the internet and social media, people don't. In fact, there's so many, I say content providers. When I say content providers, I mean people that are taking your prospects' attention away from you. Okay, 20 years ago, there was about 1 million content providers. Now, I got this from a book called Hook Point. It's by one of our clients, Brandon Kane. Okay, he's a big Hollywood social media king, does like Taylor Swift's social media, MTV, Rihanna's and stuff. And he talks about how to stand out in a 3-second world. And he says, for salespeople, we have a really big challenge because, like I said, 20 years ago, there was about 1 million content providers, news channels, newspapers, those type of things, competing for your prospects' attention. Guess how many there are now? Over 3 billion. You're actually competing against 15-year-old girls on TikTok now, taking away people's attention for you. So because of that, we're being sold 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We wake up in the morning, we get on social media, we see ads on the sides trying to sell us something, right? We turn on the TV, we see commercials trying to sell us. We get into the car, the radio commercials are trying to sell us. We drive down the road, we see billboards trying to sell us. We're at lunch, scrolling through Facebook. Grandma's talking about her newest MLM she wants us to join. We're constantly being sold to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And because of that, when we use old school type of traditional sales techniques, like you talked about, we just can't stand out. We sound like everybody else. And because of that, we get commoditized with all the other pushy salespersons that are trying to stuff their solution down their throat. So we have to think differently. All right. So you used, and you kind of, I think you told me right before we got on here, you had those kind of old school techniques, but then you kind of adapted and you figured out what didn't work, what did work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. I mean, I would hit my head against the wall using certain things, and then I would have to adjust or turn the volume down a little bit
Right.
to be a little bit
So excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to show you what I've got. I know you guys are going to benefit a lot. Are you ready to go? Yeah, it pushed them back. It didn't pull them towards me. So I've experienced, I refined some things and adjusted some things to tweak it. And then it took me a while, but then after a while, I became their specific top performer.
Yeah. You're making 25 to 30 grand a month in that industry. You pretty much are. Now, most salespeople at that point, let's say you're making 325,000 a year. Let's just that's where you're at in that ballpark. Most salespeople would get such a massive ego because they're at the top of the food chain, especially in that industry, that they just stop learning. Like, hey, I know everything there is to know about sales. I'm already making 300 grand a year. I don't need to know anything else. Like, that's the biggest mistake I see salespeople make. I say 6-figure salespeople have such large egos, right? And that ego holds most salespeople back from making way more than they thought they could. So take us back 3-4 months ago, because I know you joined our advanced NEPQ 3.0 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
What triggered you to say, like, hey, I'm already doing really well, but I think I can make more. I think I can learn more to make more. What triggered that? Because that's unique.
Yeah, Jerry, that's a great question. This past summer, I was looking for something. I had really no idea what I was looking for, but I was looking for something. I was listening to podcasts.
Okay.
And this is kind of funny. I was listening to Brad Lee on the podcast.
Okay.
Not because of his sales ability, but I liked his one-liners and it was more entertainment value. And I'm watching this podcast, and this guy from Springfield, Missouri came on.
Yeah.
It was you. And then you started to talk the sales process.
Yeah.
And as soon as you started talking, I actually literally pulled my vehicle over. I was on the highway.
Yeah.
I pulled it over, and the things you were saying just made complete sense to everything you're saying. It's like the clouds opened up and the angels start singing.
I've heard that before.
And I knew at that moment, I go, this is exactly what I need. I thought I was doing pretty good based on my peers since I was towards the top, but then I heard some of the success that you had, and I thought, I'm nowhere near where maybe I could be. So
that gets you to think a little bit different.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's, you said some really interesting things there. I with salespeople, and it's even business owners as well, but especially salespeople, we just don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
Right. So we don't know what we don't know. So when I post like your testimonial this morning and somebody messaged me like, what industry is he's in? I want to join that job because I'm only making $5 grand a month in my job, but man, I could make 50 grand selling that. I'm like, dude, it's not the industry. It's your skill level. Like, people in his industry don't make 90 grand a month in commissions. I doubt anybody does. Maybe there's 1 or 2 in the entire nation, if that. Okay. So it's a skill level that he's acquired that's allowed him to scale and make those type of commissions. So you pull over on the side of the road. You hear me talking on Bradley's podcast, Dropping Bombs, about human behavior, the differences between I would say the new model of selling, what we're training here compared to the old model. And I think a lot of salespeople, when they hear that, kind of like you, I've heard that before, like, oh my gosh, like I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? Like, they just thought selling was this way. This is how it has to be. This is what the gurus say it has to be. So it has to be this way. And so you heard me on the podcast, and then what happened at that point?
Well, I realized I didn't know you had your own podcast, so I dropped Brad and I started listening.
Okay,
I started listening to your podcast.
We won't tell Brad that. Okay.
No, yeah, don't say that to Brad. But I think I listened to everyone that was out there.
Yeah.
And some didn't pertain to my industry, so I skipped that. But after I listened to them all, I go, well, I need more. It was like I was addicted. I said, I need more. And so I think I got onto your Facebook.
And Sales Revolution.
Messaged somebody to reach out to me. Okay. Somebody reached out to me. We had a meeting. Then we set it up with one of your reps, Bill Walsh.
Yeah, Bill's great. Obviously. Yeah. So describe to me that process when you're on with Bill. Like what was that like for you in your
Bill
mind?
He was good. He pulled a lot of things out. I think one of the things that he resonated with me is I played sports, so I'm pretty competitive, play soccer, football. Yeah. And he asked me a question. He goes, when you played ball Friday or Saturday, what did you do during the week? I go, we would practice. We'd practice like hell. Yeah. He goes, what if you didn't practice? I go, well, Bill, we'd probably lose the game on Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
And then he said, how much practice do you do a week in your sales career? And that was like, I don't do any practice.
Right.
And that, like, you know something, that's exactly what I need to do. But I was, he kind of patted himself in the back, but I was already sold before I
and a lot of people are. I mean, they get into the Sales Revolution group. They see some lives. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. I think for a lot of people that just, like I said, they didn't know what they didn't know. And they hear me a couple of times. They're like, wow, that makes complete sense. Like working with human behavior rather than triggering sales resistance, not having a wall right when you start, like getting the prospects to disarm the wall of resistance. That just makes sense. It makes selling easier. I'd rather have most of my sales be laydowns than just like dragging people through the mud, trying to get them over the finish line. I'd rather just have them pull me over the finish line. Just makes selling a lot more easier and apparently a lot more profitable. Mm-hmm. All right. So you get into NEPQ 3.0. And going back, because I'm friends with Brad. Obviously, I've been on his podcast a couple of times. We have our training platform through his company. One thing I really like about Brad is he always has this quote, and he said, is training something you did or is training something that you do? And if you guys want to be successful like Bill is right here and make tens of thousands of dollars a month in commissions month after month after month, training has to be something you do, not something you did long ago, right? It's just like, Bill talked about, training before the game to win the game. It's the same concept. Michael Jordan says it's best, though. We have to be trained with the right skills. He says you can shoot 1,000 jump shots a day, but if your technique's off, you're still not going to be very good at basketball. It's the same thing in sales. You can practice 2 hours a day, but if your techniques are off, if they work against human behavior, you're still going to beat your head against the wall. So you got into the training, you started going through it. Tell us that process, because I know your third month, you had the huge, just your income tripled. Mm-hmm. It took a little while to start getting the questions down, memorizing it. Walk through us on that.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the first month or two, things were a little choppy because I was trying to insert your training and I was trying to delete the things I need to get rid of in my old training. So there's a little bit of confusion. Yeah, I think I took maybe a step back for a couple of weeks, trying to figure out what to keep, what to get rid of.
Yeah.
And then reviewing the process over and over again. The third month, things clicked and I understood, not just the words, but I understood the process I need to take that customer through. Yeah. And it made things so much easier. And I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but at the end, I didn't get a lot of objections.
Yeah, describe that process. So before NEPQ, you would get to the end, and what would most of your prospects say? Even though you made $30,000 a month in commissions, what would typically happen?
Well, you go into objection handling mode. Right. So you had to roll up your sleeves, and that's when I earned my money. Is when I that was the working part of the sales process.
Right.
You go through the presentation, which is the fun stuff, meet and greet. And then to close, you go to work, and it was just dealing with their objection handling.
So you go like I have some clients that describe it like this. They go into the boxing match every day, right? They get punched, their face hit, objections, they punch back and they come out and they might make the sale or they might lose it, but then they go to bed at night just mentally exhausted, right?
Exactly.
So when you learn NEPQ, what's the difference now? Do you feel like you're in a boxing match, or what do you feel like?
No, it's actually huge. One thing you say in your training that detach yourself from trying to or worry about making the sale. So I do that before I go in, and I'm not concerned if I do my process correctly, things will happen the way they should. So I'm not concerned really, but I focus more on them, their needs, their problems, their issues, and it just makes it more conversational.
Yeah.
And one thing I notice, I do a lot less talking. I don't talk as much as I used to.
Sure.
They talk a lot more.
Yeah. And I want to make sure everybody understands what Bill's talking about is a skilled conversation. He's not talking about like, oh, how's the weather today? Or, oh, I really liked your dog. I have poodles too. Or, oh, my daughter goes to college there. Like, he's not saying that. That's not going to make you a ton of sales. That doesn't build a relationship of trust with people, because people know what you're doing when you do that. Okay. What do you think in your mind builds that relationship of trust with what you're learning now?
The trust factor. I think as I get into it, maybe only 20% of the time they feel like I'm the authority. I'm like the trusted authority advisor going through the process.
Yeah. So they view you as the expert, as the authority. Now, they can only view Bill as the expert and authority because of the questioning skills he's learned. If you just sit there and talk, they don't view you as the authority. They just view you as a salesperson trying to sell them something. Okay. If you just ask a few logical based questions and then go into your pitch and then try to objection handle, and close, they don't view you as the expert. They view you as a salesperson. And that's not what you want to be viewed at, because then they commoditize you. So let's talk about that. So now towards the end, so you're getting a lot more laydowns. Obviously, that's, that helps triple your income. You get mainly laydowns. Let's talk about some examples. So you brought up an example the other day. So typically, because I know with your industry, because I train companies in your industry as well, I know a lot of times when they bring you out to look at their windows and all that stuff and to get a quote, they've also called 2 or 3 or 4 other companies and they get 2 or 3 or 4 other quotes. So one of the biggest objections I know your industry gets is, well, this sounds good, but I've got XYZ company tomorrow. And then Thursday, I've got ABC company. Mm-hmm. And let me do some research and then I'll get back to you. Is that one of your biggest objections?
Exactly.
Okay.
All the time.
How did you handle that objection before NEPQ? What would you say?
Before that, a lot of yeah buts. Like, yeah, but did you think of this? Did you understand this? Do you see how we're different there? And it's almost like I was justifying or defending why they should do business with us versus someone else. And I don't think with that particular objection, you can't get them not to want to do that. I think you have to change the objection to a different base, to something else, like money or the investment or procrastination, things like that.
You get them. So what you're doing now, what you're learning with NEPQ is typically in most sales training programs, because of the logical based questions and not bringing out much emotion or helping them relive the pain. Even with Windows, folks, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of pain with Windows. People are like, there's no pain in Windows or kitchen. Oh, really? Sure. Oh, there is, if you know the right questions, for sure. We'll talk about that. But most salespeople in your industry, because of the training, get their prospects to think cost-based or price-based thinking. Whereas with NEPQ, we're getting them to think results-based thinking. And when you're getting your prospects to think results-based thinking, it doesn't matter if you're 10% or 15 or 20% higher than your competitors. They're just focused on the end result of what they want and how it's going to make them feel, yes, even Windows, compared to your competitors. Can you tell us a little bit about that change for you?
Yeah, that process seemed to be a lot easier. Going through the whole sequence, the key is everything that came before that when I get to the end. And then it makes things a lot easier. So instead of focus on that specific objection, is dealing with that all the way through. In the solution, I love the solution awareness questions. It builds their in their mind's eye what their future is going to look like after all these problems. And then my favorite are the consequence questions right after that. Yeah. What are the ramifications for them if they don't do anything?
Yeah, let's talk about, like, can you give everybody listening, like, what's your best consequence question that you ask, and then why do you ask it that way?
Yeah, it works well if their solution awareness is really high, and they can see exactly what the future is going to look like once they get all these problems taken care of.
Yeah. So you get them to see what their current state is. You're getting them, like you said, in the solution awareness to see what their objective state or their future is. You're able, because of your questioning skills, able to help them see how big of a gap there is now because they didn't realize they had all these problems. And then you're yanking it away with your consequence question. What do you use for that?
So that question I asked, which I think it's powerful, is, but what if you don't do anything about these problems and your home starts to get worse and deteriorate over the next 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years?
Yeah.
What would you do then?
And what do they typically say?
Well, sometimes they'll brush it off and say, well, we'll just have to deal with that. And then I'll ask them to think a little bit deeper. But if you really thought about it and you guys didn't do anything to your home, what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Then if I need to go a little bit further, I'll ask them, like, would you be willing to settle for that?
Yeah, see, that's a really good question, because if they brush off your consequence question, for most industries, you can say, are you willing to settle for that? Okay. See how I said, you see like the angle there, like I'm leaning in, like, are you willing to settle for that? See, like you're leaning in, like you're helping in, like you don't have to. See, that's how you come across. So when you use that skepticism there, most of the time, now they could come back and say, well, if we have to, right? And then you can say, well, whose choice is it if you settle or not? Right. Well, it's my choice. So how important is it for you to change your situation and be able to get these windows in so that you don't have to, and you repeat back their problem? What's one of the biggest problems you solve?
Well, maintenance, lower utility bills, increasing value, maybe security.
Yeah. So let's just say, reducing their utility bill, because maybe their windows are old and it's, the heat's getting out, the AC is getting out in the summer or whatever. So their bills are like 50% higher than they have to be, right? So they're paying an extra $150 a month and they don't have to, or whatever it is. So but what if you don't do anything about this though, and you keep these same windows in and your utility costs keep going up the next 3, 6, or even 12 months from now? Like, what happens then? See, that's another angle you can do. So typically after that consequence question, and you're right, Bill, you can't just ask that consequence question. You have to set it up with your problem awareness and solution awareness. You have to make a gap. If there's no gap, there's no consequence either, right? Okay, so now that you've done that, you then go through your presentation. In your industry, you're pretty much doing a one-call close. You get to the end, you ask your commitment question, and let's say they're like, this sounds really good, but I've got XYZ company coming over on Thursday, and next Monday we have ABC company. Let me get their quotes, and then I'll call you back. How do you typically respond to that now that you've learned NEPQ?
Yeah, this happened to me exactly that way yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got to the commitment question, and my commitment question is, even after that was spoken, I say, do you feel that this could be the answer for you?
Yeah. What do they
And the response I got was, well, we do. We do. Everything you said, it would work. However, when I spend this kind of money, $30,000, I usually get 3 other quotes.
Yeah.
And the word I picked up on was usually.
How do you mean by usually? I like that.
Usually get. So the door was cracked open just a little bit. Yeah. So then my response was, well, can I ask you how you feel about the product so far? And she goes, I think it's going to answer a lot of my problems. Can I make a suggestion? Mm-hmm. And my suggestion is, I believe, here's what I said. I got the feeling that you've already made your mind up with what kind of direction you want to go. So can I make a suggestion? If you have other companies come out and you feel committed in your heart to possibly use us, it might be like we're wasting their time. So what I can suggest, which a lot of my customers do, is they go ahead and call the company so they can spend better time maybe trying to help out another customer instead of wasting their time there. Do you think that might be appropriate?
And what'd she say?
That's a great idea. That was it.
Okay. So, and how much did she order of those windows?
$30,000.
How much did you make off that?
4.
Make 4 grand.
4,500.
Okay. So I want everybody to hear that. If Bill had not known really had to take her through that whole process. She wouldn't have even allowed him to have made that suggestion. She wouldn't have said at the end, well, usually I get 3 quotes. She would have just said, well, I always get 3 quotes, and she would have been shut down. You couldn't have done that. But because he got her to engage and open up with his questioning skills that work with human behavior that he has learned through our NEPQ virtual training courses, our group coaching, all that kind of stuff from our sales trainers, he made a $4,000 commission. Whereas if he had not known how to do that, he would have lost a $4,000 commission. And I think salespeople don't realize how much money they lose every week because they still haven't learned the right skills. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's huge. And then they blame it on other things like the lead or the appointment wasn't any good or they didn't have any money and things like that. Yeah, I find that, an appointment gets better when you send out a better trained guy to cover the appointment.
The lead gets much better. The salesperson communicating to them has a much higher skill level. Those leads become very good all of a sudden. Marketing's working. No, it's just your salespeople have the right skills now. That's the only difference. Right. If you think about it, Bill, like in your industry, just those skills you developed, if you didn't have those there and you just lose 1 sale a week,
that's huge.
$4,000 a week, that's $16,000 a month. That's like $200,000 a year in income you would lose if you didn't have those skills. So I think a lot of times salespeople are like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to get funding together to invest in the right skills? But you have to ask yourself, which is more risky? Is it more risky to, get the funding together, get into our virtual training courses and learn those skills so you like triple your income within 3 months? Or is it more risky to do nothing at all, keep selling the same way, nothing ever changes, and you keep losing sales every single week, month after month, year after year? Which is more risky in the end? All right, your final thoughts, Bill. What are your thoughts?
Oh, let me see. Well, if I did this appropriately, Jeremy, instead of making a statement, I should really do it in the form of a question. So I got a couple. So it took me 25 years, another 5 to get where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So I thought the other day, what if I had these skills when I started 25 years ago?
Yeah.
And so my question is, where the hell were you 25 years ago?
25 years ago, I was like 17 or something.
Playing baseball in high school?
I think I was a junior in high school. My ambitions were to go to college, played college baseball. I did. I played college baseball at Avila University in Kansas City. I'm a Missouri boy as well, like you are. And then I served a 2-year mission for my church. I came back from that. I was overseas in Ireland, came back from that, went to college, and I was like, man, I got to learn how to make money. Got recruited to go to some like free, pizza meeting to learn about how you could sell alarm systems in the summer. And that's where my sales journey began while I was studying human behavior and psychology in college. So that's where NEPQ comes from for sure. So that's where I was 25 years ago when you started in sales.
Yeah. Then my second question is if, I'm kind of an old dog. I've been doing this a long time. And I think you revived my sales career because now I'm excited to cover these appointments. But if I'm picking this information up just in 30 days with 3.0 training, what kind of success would I have if I got into the inner circle?
Well, I'm just going off what people tell us that go from where 3.0 to inner circle. The difference between 3.0 and inner circle is more hands-on because you've got me actually training you myself. Mm-hmm. You've got our vice president of sales, Marco Cortese, which, we brought on in January the year before. He was a student just like you. He made 1.2 million in commissions, selling coaching programs, which most people make $4,000 a month doing that. And then you also have our CEO, Matt Ryder, which is my number 1 student of all time, who made about 1.6 million a year in commissions. So between all 3 of us training you ourselves in our group training and us writing out your sales structures in those group trainings with the clients and tying NEPQ into what they sell specifically, that typically gets people results extremely quickly for sure. That's what people would say for sure.
That's great. That's awesome.
So you want to get into that? You talk to Bill. Hit up old Bill. He's our lead account manager. Hit up Bill. He's on vacation. He gets back tomorrow. We gave him some time off, but hit him up. Whoever, anybody listening to this, if you're in 3.0 or 2.0, hit up whoever you've worked with, Ace, Dan, Bill, maybe Sean, maybe Josh. There's several. Marco maybe even got on the phone with you. And if you're looking at getting an advanced 3.0 that Bill's been in, or you want to take it a step further, get into Inner Circle for sure. So it's good stuff, man. I don't know. I could bore you to death though, training there.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's great. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being on. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, you're welcome to join that. I'll have Luke or Chris or Valera join that for free. Click on the link. When you join, it's how Bill kind of found us after a podcast with Brad, my good friend Brad Lee. When you join, there'll be like a 3-question survey. So we know a little bit more about your industry, what you sell. It just kind of gives us our data of what industries we're training in that Facebook group. And right when you join, a few hours later, check your Facebook messages, because we will actually message you a free training on objection prevention. Bill would have got the same free training when he joined 3-4 months ago. It's about a 30-minute training on how to prevent objections. Certain questions you can ask in your process that prevents most of your objections that you're getting now from even happening in the prospect's mind. Okay, it's more Jedi stuff. We'd rather prevent objections from happening rather than having a bunch of objections you have to handle. It just makes selling much more easier. Now, we're going to teach you how to handle objections, because you'll still get some. But if we can reduce your objections by 65, 70%, that's a win for you. It's a win for everybody involved, and win for your prospect too, because they're more comfortable with what you're offering. So join the Facebook group. Bill, Columbia, Missouri. I guess maybe we got to hang out this summer. I'll be at the lakes. I'm
down there too.
I'll be at our lake home.
Cool.
Sounds like you're down there. So
yeah.
You'll probably buy a massive mansion down there now with all this money you're making. And,
I already got one picked out.
We'll go out on the boat or the jet ski or whatever you want to do.
That'd be awesome.
I'll take you to Baxter's or JJ Hooks or one of the fine dining restaurants.
Here you go.
All right.
Awesome. I'll take you.
Man. All right, brother. Thanks. Appreciate it, everybody. See you tomorrow. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.